The jungle was not a place of silence. It was a symphony of predatory clicks and the heavy, wet rustle of hidden things. Every breath felt like inhaling warm, stagnant water, the kind that settles deep in the lungs and never truly leaves a suffocating reminder of this emerald hell. Frank felt the vibration of the Ares tank's engine, a low melodic hum that stood in defiant opposition to the chaotic screeching of tropical birds outside. It was the sound of cold order in a world of green madness. Through the primary reinforced quartz glass viewport, 1968 looked terrifyingly real. A lethal landscape. His mind struggled to reconcile with the sanitized luxury of the gala he had just left. The humidity seemed to seep through the tank's composite armor, carrying the thick scent of rain-soaked ozone, wet earth, and rotting vegetation. Next to him, Miller was gasping, his chest heaving as if he were trying to swallow the very air. His face was a pale mask of disbelief, his expensive navy blue business suit ruined by the heavy sweat of a man facing his worst nightmare. Miller's eyes were wide and unfocused as he stared at the vintage M16 rifle leaning against the console. It was a relic of the era they had supposedly left behind, a haunting reminder of the blood they had shed in these same jungles 50 years ago. Suddenly, the suffocating silence was shattered by the rhythmic chatter of AK-47 fire. The sound was unmistakable, a dry, deadly knocking that echoed through the teak trees. A few hundred yards ahead, Frank saw them. A squad of young American geese, their faces caked in mud and primal terror, were pinned down in a shallow rice paddy. They were being torn apart by a hidden North Vietnamese machine gun nest, the tracer rounds slicing through the monsoon mist like angry fireflies. These were boys who had not yet seen their 20th birthdays, wielding weapons that jammed and wearing thin flak vests that offered little more than a fragile prayer. Frank's heart hammered against his ribs with a violence he hadn't felt in half a century. He knew this skirmish. He had lived it in his nightmares every night since he came home. This was the ambush at Hill 932, the day the jungle had claimed his innocence and the life of his youngest brother in arms. "Ghost, what are we doing?" Miller yelled, his voice cracking with hysteria. "We should not be here. This is a glitch, a failure in the neural link." Frank did not answer. He did not even look at his old friend. His hands, no longer trembling with age, gripped the controllers of the Ares with ironclad certainty. "Ares, initiate swarm drone deployment," he commanded. His voice was low and filled with a cold focus. From the rear of the matte black beast, 10 sleek drones hissed into the air, disappearing into the canopy like silver hornets. Instantly, Frank's vision split. Holographic windows bloomed in the air, providing thermal feeds from above the trees. He saw the enemy positions as bright orange heat signatures, glowing like embers in the brush, invisible to the boys in the mud but helpless against 21st century optics. It was like the game, yet infinitely more visceral. In Warmech, the enemies were just pixels. Here, he could see the beads of sweat on the brow of the enemy gunner through the drone's high-zoom lens. Frank felt a cold, surgical calm settle over him, the same lethal focus that had made him a legend in the virtual world, now backed by real steel and 60 years of vengeance. He lined up the reticle, his mind merging with the tank's targeting computer. The Ares twin railguns hummed, a high-pitched whine of capacitors charging with enough energy to power a small city. "Target locked," the AI whispered. Frank pulled the trigger. But there was no explosion of gunpowder, only a crack like lightning hitting a century-old tree. A blue streak of ionized air sliced through the jungle, vaporizing the machine gun nest and the hillside behind it in a fraction of a second, leaving only charred earth and the metallic smell of ozone. The American squad in the mud froze, their weapons lowered in shock. They looked toward the source of the sound, seeing only a black, angular shape lurking in the mist, a ghost made of iron. Frank did not stop. Navigated the areas through the dense teak trees as if they were blades of grass, the powerful electric motors providing a silent, unstoppable torque. He launched a second volley of micro-missiles, guided by the drones. They curved through the air with impossible agility, seeking out hidden bunkers with a terrifying intelligence. One by one, the threats that had haunted Frank's nightmares were erased by the touch of a button. The jungle was being purged of its ghosts. As the smoke cleared, Frank brought the tank to a silent halt just yards away from the surviving GIs. He looked through the quartz glass at a young private staring back in disbelief. The boy's helmet was slightly too large for his head, and his eyes were wide with awe and fear. Frank felt a lump in his throat. That was Billy. Billy, who had died in Frank's arms in the original timeline, screaming for his mother in a muddy trench. But here, Billy was standing. He was breathing. He was alive because a god from the future had intervened in the middle of a nightmare. "We are changing it, Miller," Frank whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "We are rewriting the whole damn thing. Every mistake, every death, every drop of blood we left behind." He could feel the Ares eye already calculating the next tactical move, suggesting a strike on the enemy's main command center. The rules of war had just been set on fire. The jungle was no longer a place of ambush. It was a hunting ground, and Frank was the master of the hunt. But as he prepared the next charge, a faint, rhythmic flicker appeared at the edge of his HUD, a digital artifact. A brief moment where the emerald jungle turned into cascading lines of green code before snapping back to reality. Frank ignored it. He had a war to win, and a debt to pay to the dead that had waited far too long for justice.